I told you the path to overcoming life challenges is found from lessons learned from teenagers? Our guest today, Kay Bush, has gleaned invaluable life lessons from her extensive work with teenagers, culminating in her book, You Can Do Hard Things. Don't miss this interview. Hi, Kay. Thank you so much for being my guest on the Choose Courage podcast today.
Thank you, Terry, for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Another author. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Anytime anybody writes a book, I get so excited because, it's a thrill of a lifetime. And not only have you written a book, but it's a powerful book that's changing teenagers. And we all know during the teenage years, it can be confusing. So tell us a little bit about your journey of how you wrote this book and what it's about.
Yes, I'm happy to share and eager to share. I can't wait to be sharing this book with the world. But my journey has been more than 40 years that I have been working with teens and children, and really arrived at teens being kind of my main focus. But for over 40 years, my careers have led me to supporting teens in hospital settings and support group settings, and then in schools as a school counselor. So it just kept leading me along this path, and it's just became where I felt I needed to be, and it has just became my purpose of where I have felt like I have fit best.
Amazing.
So
Amazing. And what was the journey? What was the heartstring that was pulling at you to work with teens? What was it within you that made you want to help teenagers?
I think it, as I, with all my education, all my passion for learning about development of children and teens, and just always being very curious about how do young people grow up. And but then in that, finding and trying to figure out, well, and in the work that I've done has always been supporting teens through hard things.
Ah,
So because they've faced challenges and difficult situations in healthcare, in the hospital setting, in just family situations, and then in my work has always been helping teens through tough things. So in that, my curiosity of how do they do it? How do they get through the such difficult things that I was witnessing them face? And I mean, truly hard things. And maybe where it originated is me not knowing even how would I get through that? How would I get through that situation? But I was watching the teens in front of me find their way and manage even just small things that would help them. And that's probably where my focus started to get a little more dialed in of how do they do it, and what are the strategies they use. And then that became my efforts to always be that support to remind them, that I think you can do this. I think you can get through this hard situation. So in helping to make plans and helping to find the strategies, but I really, my learning is from them. Everything I've learned is from them.
I have chills. I actually have chills right now. I really, I think it's amazing that you wrote a book about this, and that you're a counselor, right? You were a counselor, and teenagers would come in and probably tell you things that they haven't told anyone. You
Yes,
created safe
yes,
space for them. And
yes.
then you're thinking, oh my goodness, they're coming to me to share something, and I'm
Yeah,
supposed to tell them how to get through these difficult things, and they're actually showing you how they're doing it.
yeah,
And it must
yeah.
have been an eye opener. It must have been an eye opener for you. And that's why it led you to writing a book, because did you start to see a theme in teenagers? And I'm sure there was a variety of backgrounds of situations.
Oh, I've seen as many teens as I've seen across 40 years. There are that many individual stories and very, very hard stories, and really very specific to each one, that there's no measuring what a hard thing is for
Mm,
anybody. And there's no comparison. It's the teen in front of me and what they share, and what they shared with me, that was their hard thing. And yes, they sometimes were, that might have been their first place that they decided to share something. And I worked very hard to always create that safe space. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned the courage, because I know that aligns with all of what you do in your work. And courage was always that first tool
mm,
that they needed to use. And I always, when a teen first came to my school counselor office and came through the doors, I knew that took a lot of courage to just take that first step.
yeah.
So I always recognize that of, you showed up and I'm here to listen. And that's what I did. I just listened to the very best abilities that I could, so that they could say what they needed to say. And then from there, just that support to help them decide. It was never me giving the advice or me saying, here's what you should do. It's, what do you think the next steps could be? What could be even a small step to help and to take charge of maybe feeling better? It might be for the next day, it might be for the next 5 minutes that it might feel better, but let's talk about that. And I think it's my, just always empowering them
Yeah,
to come up with their ideas.
so empowering. Um,
Mhm.
that's so empowering. And they're
Yeah.
probably not used to that because
Yeah.
teenagers are always being told what to do, what to do, what to do.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
teaching them that they have the power within to find those answers. And what a
Yeah.
turnaround and empowering thing that you did for them. And then that the ability to listen, to be heard, that they
Mhm.
feel like they're heard. That's so powerful. So in this process that so beautiful that you were able to give that to so many teenagers from all walks of life, I'm sure, and
Mm.
that had the courage to come in and talk to you and tell them what's going on. That has to be extremely hard.
Yeah.
Teenage years are tough. You know,
Yes.
there's hormones, first of all, and then there's, then you're trying to figure out who you are.
Yes, yes. There's the task of adolescence that is all about figuring out who you are, who you're going to be, and starting to be independent, starting to try things out, starting to practice independence. So there's so much of that, but can also be so scary and so overwhelming to many teens. And it's all what has to happen. I try to stay away from using the word normal, because none of it's all just what has to happen. And they have to get out of their comfort zone. They have to try new things. Um, and any of us, even adults, if we could just stay in our comfort zones, we would.
Right.
But it is that space to keep moving forward. If so, whether it's a teen going through a hard situation or a teen who just wants to set goals and be successful in life, they have to, first show up with that courage to try something different, to start thinking, who do I want to be in my life and how do I want to do it? So that's where it starts, and that's where it's necessary to get out of their comfort zone.
It's amazing. And that's a hard thing to teach, because they're kind of young. They haven't really experienced doing that very often. And it's a scary thing, but a lot of times it's a lot scarier in your mind than what it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
is. Once you get on the other side, it's not, I do teach courage and facing fear, and that fear
Mhm.
can actually be, you can use it as a tool and
Yeah, yeah.
to grow and to teach that in the teenage years is life changing. And
Mhm.
and so this has led you listening to all these stories of teenagers going through hard things. You wrote a book called You Can Do Hard Things. And in this book, I've read it, It has a beautiful steps that, to me, that are simple and powerful. And then you have these beautiful pictures that also go along with it.
Mhm.
And it's just really kind of connects to your soul on a deeper level. And then you share the stories
Mhm.
that people can relate to or teenagers can relate to. And again, I think it's adults too. When I was reading, I'm like, this is definitely can be used for all ages, but to get it as a teenager is so powerful. So tell us some of the steps or what's in the book.
Yes, at the end, I hope for this to be the pictures. The pictures are all my photos. They're all my words that are put on the photos of
But know
different, yeah, different inspiration, different quotes that honestly have been across years of my work, and only to add, and I'll explain more about the book, but you know, they've come from many of my days coming home from a day of working with teens and working with hard things, and just, you know, just any of the thoughts that came into my head. It was maybe one of my outlets to photos, and where I find inspiration to keep going as well. But so the book is, yes, it has hopefully all of those places of inspiration and places that, you know, and my belief that I know they can find their way. It's just finding the strategies and finding what you need to do. So, which is why in the book, each chapter, each tool that is explained, there's 8 tools, and following each of those tools are some journal pages, and they're very specific in what they ask for. They ask, you know, what, how can I, so if courage is the example, the first tool, and the tools don't have to be used in order at all other than courage. Courage is that first one.
Oh, love
So yeah, so that courage of, how can I show up today with courage? And I can't possibly tell a teen, you know, what I think they should do to show up with courage. I need them to identify that. So the book provides that place for them to write down for themselves, sketch out a plan um, for the day, for just that day.
that day.
And
Right.
they also have spaces they can, if you know, all teens who do enjoy drawing their feelings or
Yes.
doodling out their feelings, they can do that. So there's space for that. And then the next day they get to review how that went the day before. So that's yesterday's review of, you get to say it worked, it didn't work, I felt great about it, I didn't feel good about it. It was all just a disaster. And that's okay. And that's okay to just be honest about that. And then the next part of it is tomorrow's adventure, meaning now I'm going to make a plan for tomorrow. And I get to take what I've learned. It's all learning. I've always said there are never mistakes. It's all learning. And just take what you learned and try again tomorrow, and keep building on that. So those are the 3 kind of the work for each teen reading the book, to just do their own thinking, their own, and make it make sense for them in their lives. And it's something they can do for themselves and never show anybody else,
Mhm.
or they can show it to somebody. And maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a, you know, a trusted adult that they feel like they really want to show, I'm trying to do some different things. And so those are the plans, and making those plans. And that's something I learned from my early years working with young people in the hospital settings of, let's make a plan of how to manage the painful procedure ahead, or let's make a plan of, it's still going to happen, or, you know, some hard things may still happen, but if you make a plan, and I saw this early on, if the young person makes that plan, they cope with it better, and they take charge of it better, and they come out of it stronger. So those are the plans that I encourage. And I really, I I hope for that to be kind of normalized as a life skill, as
Could be.
something, yeah,
It
that, yeah, let's normalize, you know, this is a life skill for going forward in your adult life,
yes.
because your adult life will be lots of making plans, revising them, and trying again.
Yes, and learning from them and taking it one day at a time, and I think that's what your book is teaching them, and to take some mindful thought, thinking about creating your plan. So the journaling is you're thinking about things, and then you're reflecting on things. Did it work?
Yes.
Did it not work? How could I do this better? Or congratulate yourself, or it went
Mhm.
well. And those are just life skills that a lot of people could benefit from
Mhm.
day to day. We don't really even take the time, and that journaling,
Yeah.
is important with the tools. And you're teaching in them that, and that if they take this plan every day, reflect, journal, that they can, and start with courage, that they
Mhm.
can do hard things.
Yes.
And probably what's been the result of working with teenagers? Or have you had some of these teenagers that you've worked with read the book yet?
No, I have not yet. I've had some young people read it, but not who were specific former teens that I've known.
Yes. Are you
No,
planning on reaching?
but I'm looking forward to it, to them reading it. Yes.
Okay, good, good. Because I was just also curious about, some of all these teenagers that you've helped. I'm sure there's a lot that have stayed in your life, or have reached back to you to tell, what an influence you've been in their life. Or it must be so rewarding to see that you've helped them have good lives or be good people and get through hard things. Not just by
Yes.
listening, or and then now sharing their stories.
Hmm. Well, and to also make sure, and I absolutely, this was a huge focus of my book, to make sure the stories in the book have all been modified and changed to protect the privacy of all those young people. So
Yeah.
that's a huge
Or
part. That's a huge
yes.
part of who I am, and my, my integrity, to make sure. So many of the teens may read any of the stories in the book and may not necessarily know it's theirs,
Yes.
but their stories had to, there's the themes of their stories, and what I've been seeing teens go through were so important to this book. Were so important to teaching the tools, because they're examples of how I saw the tools show up, and how I saw courage show up, and taking charge, and trying again, that resilience. So the stories are so important for that. And yes, I have been so lucky to be able to have conversations with former students and former teens that I've supported. Um, and that's been amazing, and that I love that. But I take away even just the moments that I shared with that teen in front of me, that I knew in that moment when I saw their face brighten, and I saw them sit up, and I saw them say, okay, I'm going to try again. I got this. And if that moment might not have, they might not have come back to me, but they took charge, and I knew they were going out of my office door and they were going to take charge.
Mhm.
That's all I needed. That's all I ever needed,
Yeah.
was I could see when they were going to take charge. And that's where the whole phrase of "you can do hard things" came from, is eventually in our conversations, I would be saying, I think you've got this. You can do this. I think you can do hard things. And they'd be like, yeah, it was like a challenge. Like, yeah, I can do hard things. I got this. And I knew they were on their way. So many of those stories, what I may never see many of those young people again. But I knew in that moment that I saw their strength, and that's what I will always hold in my heart, and just know that that they're going to keep going, and just my prayers always for them to remember when they face the tough things in life, that they'll remember that they do have it within them.
I
So
mean,
that's the message of my book.
what a gift. I mean, you've planted all these seeds, and and I'm sure it's an amazing ripple effect that you've created in all these people's lives and at a young age. What reward, I mean, what a rewarding thing that you've experienced in your life so far. And now you're taking it a step further, and you have a book so you can get out to more teenagers and change more people to realize that they can be courageous. They have it within them to do hard things and that they can start over again. It's that seed of hope
Mhm.
and resilience and strength. And we all need that day to day. And I just love that you've written this book. And what are you going to do with this book? How are you getting it out there? How can people get a hold of it? And how can they get a hold of you?
My website is youcandohardthings.today.
Love,
Perfect name for the website, and dot today, meaning there's no better day than today.
love
So,
that. Yes.
but on my website is where all of my contact information is, and my email, and how I can be reached. So that's probably the simplest information.
So anyone with a teenager, I want you to get a hold of this book, get a hold of, okay, today, today's, I mean, why wait? To
Yeah.
start knowing that your teenager can do hard things and that they can have courage. And I know it's difficult for parents watching teenagers sometimes, or a
Mhm.
teenager that might be listening to this right now, that you can get a hold of these tools. And so don't hesitate, do it today. And is there any one last thing that you want to share with our audience before we end our conversation?
You know, this is a book I think for the adults around the teens. So as you mentioned that, I think that definitely whether it's parents or adults who work around teens, or just have teens in their lives in some way, I think this is a book for them as well. There is a letter to the parents in the
Ah,
book,
perfect.
so there is something for the parents, and I think it can be a support for all of them, for everyone, and just our support around teens. They are incredible people, and we need them in our world, and we need them to grow up. And I am so inspired by them and have been, and I know I the purpose of my book and the message of the book is to get ready for the world, and get out there, and do be who you need to be, and take charge of who you need to be, and always ask for help when you need it, but you can do it. Take charge.
I love it. What a beautiful, powerful message for anyone listening today. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and in your book and really changing the world one person at a time.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for having me and letting me share.
You're welcome. And all the success in the world in your book.